Yeah.
Thank you for joining me.
No problem.
So the album's out, wow, in 2 days. It's the first full-length album of new music in 7 years. So when did you start the process for the new tracks?
I think about 5 years ago, we sat down and started thinking that maybe we'd make another album. Then of course there was a pandemic in between there too.
Yep.
But so I wouldn't say we've been lazy, but the thing is, we decided early on that we should try to write, you know, the previous albums since 2008. They have been more and more like this, like silo writing, as I call it. Is that you sit in your own chamber or wherever you might be, and you compose something, and then you put something in Dropbox, and then perhaps you ask the singer to sing something, you know, like, or maybe you just start recording drums and you don't have the vocal layer quite sorted out yet. So I think when we started with this, we had this idea that we should always test things out with Timo, the vocalist, while we were writing, you know, and just like throw stuff against the wall and, you know, see what happened. So it's obviously a process that takes a little bit longer time because you have to actually get together rather than, you know, you get in front of your computer and you write stuff and you hope for the best. So it took a little bit longer time, but I think in today's business climate, for music business, it's a fact nowadays that recording an album is mostly you are mostly losing money from this.
Yeah,
it's more like you are making somehow a demo for the band that you can go out and play live. You know, you get like good festival spots and you get good, you know, good club shows and stuff like that. So my thinking anyway is, if you're anyway losing money, you should try to make the best songs that you can to make the biggest impact and biggest connection and biggest, you know, biggest value for the consumer. That if you have good songs and you release them all at the same time, you know, you get like happy consumers, happy fans. So it took a little bit longer time, and as I said, the goal was to get people together to write more, and then the pandemic, of course, it put a big hole in the strategy because we could not get together anymore. So then we just kind of paused everything a little bit, at least for 1 year. And that's why it took a little bit longer time than a normal starter record.
You also did some of the album in Timo's home studio. So that also helps business-wise when it comes to recording budgets and things. You're not spending money on renting out studios for days on end. You've got a bit more freedom. So did that help in the process, having a studio like that to use?
I think we could afford having a studio also. So it's not so much that, but I think just like the level of comfort. And I think, as I said, we did a lot of the writing in Timo's studio. And then, of course, you can test things out in a super professional manner. And I think that's like, for him, he didn't have to travel really.
Yep.
Me and Matthias traveled to his place, and then we would just get together and have some barbecue and beer and stuff, and bash things out. So I think by the time we actually recorded the vocals for sure, for real, that was done in his studio, but the drums were done in a proper studio, like in Helsinki. But anyway, by the time we recorded the vocals, he had like been able to rehearse the stuff he was singing for like years.
Yep.
Some of the songs.
Okay, so when the band did this album, as you said, you got together in a studio rather than using a computer. How do you feel that affected the end product?
I think it affected it's better. I think the songs are better.
Yep.
I think they sit nicer with the voice, you know, and I think you can hear that he's like happier singing and the stuff. And I think the lyrics are better. I think the melodies are kind of more organic and suited to his voice, you know, like in the past, I think we would drop things in Dropbox. Let's say I would play like a vocal melody with a keyboard, or Matthias would play a vocal melody like with a guitar or a keyboard. It's kind of difficult to envision how it would sound. And I think sometimes when you would have this like very rough demos, which are just meant to be like a suggestion, then that becomes like the norm. And you kind of don't discuss it beyond that point, and then you try to write the lyrics to fit this like stupid melody that you just figured, oh well, I'll put something here and we should try to work it out. And in the end, this time, this like we should work it out, we focused a lot more on that than we have in the past, and I think you can hear it. I think the songs are better.
Sure. So the title...
we also had more songs. I mean, we had something like 25 songs, and we've just picked the ones that me, Matthias, and Timo liked the best.
So were those 25 all fully completed? So we might see them in the future?
Yeah, some of them were like germs in the germ stadium, and some of them were completed and just like, well, we have to redo a bunch of stuff here. So yeah, some of the ideas for sure will make it.
Okay. Now, the title Survive, is that reflective of the world today or the band today for you?
I think both. I think on purpose we picked this kind of ambiguous thing, and of course that's life in general. You have to move forward to survive. Yep. But I think the world, I mean, we didn't know that when we picked the title. It was last summer.
Yep.
We didn't know what was going to happen, but now, of course, the world is like a more bleak place today than it was last summer.
Yep. So, what does it take for a band to survive in 2022 as opposed to almost 30 years ago when the band started?
I think you have to have, I mean, what we have, which is fortunate, we have the history. That's, of course, a super strong asset because we have a connection with fans from 20 years ago. That kind of, they have their expectations and we have also their trust in a way that if we go and play live, and like I said, most of the income comes from playing live. If you have a show, you have the trust that we will not like surprise them in an unpleasant way, you know, somehow.
Yeah.
Play like a reggae set, or you know, like now we have gone like full industrial metal with screaming vocals or something like that. They kind of know what they would get, which is like melodic power metal. And that's, of course, a very important part. And it's like a lot of hard work going into building that trust over the last 30 years. And then, of course, you just have to have a staggering amount of like business sense, because there are so many traps you can fall into.
Yeah.
So many wrong ways to do things, like also within the band, and how you kind of solve things financially with the band. And, you know, there are very many ways you could go wrong. Lose members and this type of thing. So it's like it's a fine line between everybody's personality and keeping the band together.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, and of course the pandemic didn't make this easier. It was like a giant blow towards the whole music industry, of course.
Absolutely.
From the record labels to the booking agents to venues to crew to musicians. I mean, across the whole board, it was just a big thing.
Now, speaking of some more songs on the album, so you got World on Fire, which really, for me, highlights climate problems in the world. What do you think we're doing wrong besides the obvious, and what do you think we can do that's very easy to do better to improve the world?
When you talk about climate change itself and the greenhouse gas emissions, of course, one of my big problems with the European Green Movement is there is resistance to nuclear power. Which of course does not release any of these gases into the atmosphere. And I think to me it's like we have shut down nuclear power in Europe, especially Germany has been heavily doing this, but also Sweden has done it a bit, because the green movement feels it's not sustainable. You know, it's like you still have to dig uranium out of the ground. So to me this was like a big mistake just from this like global perspective. Now, of course, this year it turns out to have been a big mistake also from our energy supply standpoint. You know, like, you know, there's this war going on and Putin is like so of course we are missing a lot of energy in Europe now, and the winter might be quite hard, but I'm not blaming it all on Putin. It's actually, I would say, the green movements in Germany and Sweden, for instance, have been instrumental in shutting down kind of, you know, scary nuclear power. I mean, nobody likes to have nuclear disasters on their soil. But still, I think even if we were to have a huge disaster in Germany or Sweden or something like that, it's still not a global problem. It's like, of course, very, very bad for us who would live here. But I still feel that many years I've been feeling we should kind of take the risk, which is a very low risk per terawatt hour. We should take this risk kind of like for Africa and the developing world, but this was not to be. And now, of course, we are actually paying the price for our comfortable lives here. This winter might be kind of shitty, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Blame the Green Party. So I mean, I'm probably more green than the Green Party here in Germany. And of course, when you explain this to Green Party people in Germany, they go, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. Like, fuck, we fucked it up a bit. But I just read a news item today that France are planning to restart some of their nuclear power plants that maybe were shut down in the summer because of the heat. Funnily enough.
Yep.
So let's see how it goes. But it might be an interesting winter here. But we'll see what happens.
Time to tour in the southern hemisphere. And
Yeah, maybe. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, the band, as I said, verging on 30 years, huge catalogue. When it comes to you guys going out and playing live, how hard is it to decide a set at this point in time?
It's difficult because you don't want to play the same old. But then I think when you are playing a festival, my thoughts is like you should adapt separately to a festival gig than you do to a club show, because at the festival gig you are really trying to attract people who just stumble into the festival for some other band. And you might have to do this like greatest hits, which then becomes more heavier to the earlier catalog. But I think for the live shows now we're going to try to get more of the more recent material in there, but we'll see. It's also within the band people's preferences, and sometimes we ask the people in the crew, and they go like, no, that's not a good song. So it's a bit of a struggle, but I think it's a problem many people would like to have, that you have a bunch of good songs and then it's difficult to choose from.
Yeah.
So
have you ever entertained the idea of just playing an entire album front to back for headline shows?
We have done it. It doesn't quite work, but we did some anniversary shows like that when we actually played all the songs from one album. And I think 20 years ago also we tried to play like the new album and in its entirety. That lasted like 2 or 3 shows, because people, if the album is recently out, they don't even know the songs, and of course you don't get this connection because it's completely fresh material. But yeah, we have tried it a few times, but I think probably a mixed approach is more interesting.
Sure. What songs from the new album are you looking forward to playing the most live?
I think we have already played these 3 that were released, like Survive and World on Fire and Firefly. We have played live.
Yep.
I'm sure we will play more of them, but I don't know exactly which ones yet. Like, we are discussing it at the moment. But probably we will rehearse a lot of them and then maybe not play all of them.
Okay. And what's the band's touring plans looking like into 2023?
2022 we have a Finnish tour.
Yep.
About a month, but like scattered gigs. It's like weekends and a few weekday gigs for 1 month of November.
Yep.
And then we go to Latin America in April, and then we're talking about what kind of, if any, like surface tour in Europe that we should be doing. And of course we'd all like to go back to Japan because it's kind of interesting place. Of course we'd like to go to Australia again too. Like we are also talking about next year's summer festivals, obviously, because this is something, European summer festivals is very good with this kind of music.
Yep.
And kind of easy. Like,
what music are you listening to at the moment?
At the moment, actually not much. I try to a little bit take this approach that I don't listen to so much music when I'm like at home, but I heard this Ia Eklund, if you know that guy, this guitar player. I think he put out a new song that was quite nice. I listened to yesterday. It's like, wow. But that's like super heavy progressive stuff.
Sure. And you said, there are hopes that we will see you hopefully 2023.
I always hope for this. Like,
yeah. As we finish up tonight, we're only a couple of days out from the album. What do you want to tell all your friends in Australia?
Hope to see you soon. Like, it's always difficult. It took us many years to come to Australia because of the distance. I guess the tyranny of distance. It's like you have to especially now with this flight fuel prices and stuff like that. I don't know how likely it's going to be, but hope springs eternal and dies last, as they say. Let's see. Hopefully we can come there, play again.
Excellent, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Congrats on the album, and everyone should go and grab it when it's out on Friday.
Yeah, or listen. It's on YouTube. I think we had this like listening session on YouTube yesterday, and it's still up there if people want to have like a sneak preview. But of course, vinyl is nice. You have this like the cover looks fantastic, and if you get this vinyl thing, that you can see like the full detail of the cover, like really nice.
Absolutely.
I would recommend everybody to buy physical products, of course. But if you want to check it out, we did this listening session where they actually played the vinyl, like on air, and broadcast it on YouTube, and like with people chatting and stuff yesterday. So it should still be up, and you can check it out.
Excellent. Check it out. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.